Welcome back to the 10-Minute Product Podcast. My name is Jonas.
And my name is Christian. And in this episode, we will explore insights and experiences that have shaped our work lives and our careers.
Christian, we all know the feeling. We are part of an industry that's constantly changing. It's highly dynamic, and it puts pressure on us to constantly adapt new skills and knowledge to stay relevant and competitive in the playoff for the most coolest gigs and most interesting products. And Christian, with that, I'll kind of hand it to you and say, you're now sitting in front of a 25-year-old, I'm not going to say better looking, but a version of yourself. What kind of advice would you give yourself?
Plenty. Run a half marathon earlier, do a lot of things. On the career side, there's a huge amount of many things that we could talk about between skills, between this, that, but the biggest one so far is the network. And that has been the single biggest thing once you actually do a decent job, the network you have, your friends, your people who value you and value your work, and you work together, you've contributed. This has been the single most important thing in my life, and everything good that happened, even if sometimes it was a bit random, there was always an introduction at the beginning. There was somebody who vouched for you, somebody who recommended you, even to the lowest level of sort of events where somebody goes and reference checks you and people give you a good reference. And so the network. And I've talked about this lately, just to finish the thought, is I talked about this with a friend, and he said, I haven't been doing, I've had kids, I've had, jobs, and I realized for the last 5 years, I haven't done an effort in meeting people. So he set himself his own OKR to meet one person every 2 weeks, go for a small dinner or a small lunch or something, to sort of reinvigorate his network.
It's absolutely also the number one career advice I would give myself. And also, just to remind you, it's not just about a network where you utilize when you need to source new job opportunities, when that's needed for you. It's also a network of peers that you trust and value to the extent that you seek their advice. You trust that the feedback you get is honest and it's constructive.
Yeah.
And it's a relationship that, to your point, you need to invest into it. You need to nourish it. You need to give back.
Yeah.
But as such, is a huge investment that's worth and will provide the return.
Yeah,
for
100%.
Absolutely.
Cool. So that's number one. What's your number two then?
I think around as you progress in your career and you pass through different jobs and different roles at different levels, ensure to collect the impact your work has. And the impact, I made great impact. That's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Where we live in a world that's where everything should be measurable. Try to also describe your impact in a measurable way. You move the needle on a key set of metrics. You hired X number of people. You launched 7 new features, X, Z, and Y new products with such impact. Try to make that as measurable as possible, not just in your CV, but in the way you kind of talk to who you are and your profile and why it's relevant for a particular topic or job.
Yeah,
so that would be the second advice I would give.
Fully agree. I think on a product level, especially product managers that are supposed to, I always say, a developer with a laptop can launch a company, but as a product manager, you're supposed to help figure out user problems and customer problems better and build a better solution. So if you're not aware of your contribution and your impact, that's not great. And you mentioned the CV. It's interesting when I read through CVs, if there is no measurable, sort of quantifiable contribution that the person writes about, I think they haven't quite yet understood what it means to add as a product person. And I think quantification, absolutely, 100%. All right, let me go with the number 3 then.
Yeah, go for it.
Number 3, I would say, is taking risks. So you need to take some risks, and it's quite difficult. you're in a job, you have a salary, if you're not a born entrepreneur, let's say, or if you don't have this absolute entrepreneurial drive, it'll be difficult to take risk. But every single time I've taken a risk, it has, opened doors. I've met new people. I've had new opportunities. I've done things that if I hadn't done them, I would probably regret it later. Would I know it? I don't know. It's always difficult to say. But taking risks has brought a lot of benefit. And, I remember, just to illustrate, a couple of times, I got a phone call once saying, hey, we're looking for somebody to build a platform in Java. And I remember this perfectly. I think I was 24, and I had never touched Java before. I've done C++, but I wanted to touch Java. But I told, being a 24-year-old on the phone, I was like, oh, okay, I don't know any Java, And I hung up, and suddenly I realized, I thought to myself, hold on, same paradigm. It's a minimalistic language, so if I know C++, I'm pretty sure I can learn Java within, a few days. And I thought, hold on. So I looked at my phone and it had the caller number. So I simply called back that particular project manager and I said, hey, hold on. If you give me a week, how urgent is this? Can I learn in a week? And because he had no one else, he said, well, might as well try because there's no one else. And 3 weeks later, I had a team because I learned, I delivered something, and they gave me a team to work with. So the taking the risks would be my
That's
number three.
not just the most exciting periods of my career, but also the most insightful and learningful
Yeah.
has been where I placed myself willingly or unwillingly in situations where I got stretched.
Yeah.
I have a key point in my career where actually when I left Google, I joined a fairly large leadership role. I had leadership in Google, but not across 50 people plus across specialist teams. All the while we're doing a turnaround with a view to sell off a division of the enterprise I was a member of. And during that period, it was just a crazy ride, but it stands for me as one of the most learningful experiences, and also something that leapfrogged my career into leadership. And it was no doubt I had my scars from the period, but I also remember it very fondly as a very exciting time where I stretched myself and proved to myself the things I could do even in stretch situations.
Nice.
So
cool. So, one more, the fourth one from you.
Yes, I'm happy to share that. And for me, and this is more kind of conceptual, but it is to stay true to yourself. What I mean by that is to stay true to your values and your sense of right and wrong. We've all been, faced with exciting opportunities that are just there for the grasp, but inside yourself, you have a clear sense that this feels wrong for whatever reason. And my recommendation to a younger and more hairy version of myself would be to follow your sense of right and wrong, and that could lead to difficult decisions. But at the end of the day, this is all you got. In the long term, your name in the industry, your track record of acting with integrity, is what carries you forward in your career. And as such, is worth investing into, even though in the short term, it may be a more difficult decision where there's an exciting opportunity in front of you.
I was surprised the first time I had a big recommendation written once for a particular topic. And the person had written in there, Christian is 100% ethical. And I was surprised to read it as a youngster. And now with hindsight, I understand the value of that. That one single line probably did, a heavy lifting in the whole, in the overall recommendation. I'd like to sort of wrap up a little bit with a thought, which is that the interesting thing, the two of us have, of course, the luxury of saying, oh, we've had, 25, 30 years behind us. Here's what worked, here's what didn't. The interesting thing, though, is that none of us came up with the super technical things. Hey, do you know Scrum? Do you know Agile? Can you do Kanban? Have you understood how to write a story? What's the good measure of KPIs? Like everything, right? So none of the advice is, get better at KPIs or get better at this and that. And I think just to wrap I always felt when I was younger, I thought, well, it's easy for you guys to say these things because you're sitting there with all your experience. I have to do the hard choices. But I think the biggest thing is that when you face the hard choices, the biggest thing to know is that, yes, taking the hard decisions will actually, according to your framework, pay off later. And I've read I read a management book last year about from a tracker, a wild animal tracker. And his biggest line is he doesn't know where the animals are going, but he knows how to follow them. So his biggest sort of management line was, I don't know where I'm going, but I know how to get there. And this is a little bit the theme, which is, yes, you may not know if it pays off right now, but if everybody who's, had 30 years behind them says these things, that these are the important things, there is something there, right? So trust your gut, trust your values, do the best you can, basically, is sort of the
Exactly, Christian. And I usually say, just to bring it into our day-to-day, is that I know when I pitch myself is that I know what good looks like. I have a clear sense of when things looks right and feels right. And you gain that through experience, but you gain that through doing mistakes. And just back to the point about taking risks. Making mistakes is not the net sum of who you are. It's the learning you should make from them, and that's what experience is at the end of the day.
100%.
So it's a good thought to kind of wrap up with, I think.
Perfect.
Gave there.
Cool. Well, thank you, Jonas.
Thank you, Christian.
And hopefully to all the listeners, this was useful, and see you in the next episode. Send us feedback.
Yes, and do sign up as well. We do like followers. It shows us that you care. Thank you. Until next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.